Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Well, hello there. This is Kelly, and thank you for being here and listening to In Her Voice today. It has been a couple of weeks, and that was not my intention. But you know what? I just got lifed on over the past couple of weeks. It has been a time, let's just say. All is well, you'll be glad to know. And I'm back this week with an amazing guest in Hilary DeCesare. You are going to love, love, love her. But really quickly before we get to that, I just want to remind you that it is September, and with all of back to school season, or I've always felt that September is sort of like, feels like a time to like renew and refresh my intentions and my goals for the year. You know, it's almost like a second new year, if you will. And so to that end, this year I decided to run my September Refresh and Reconnect sessions. And these are 30-minute one-on-one sessions with me to help you get really clear on the habits that you need right now in your life that are going to help you feel the way that you want to feel. And this would go great to go side by side with one of my habits workshops that I'm definitely going to be running this month. So if you're interested in that, you can get on the wait list for that. If you want to learn more about how you can book in for a September Renew and Reconnect session with me, you can go to kellycovert.com/renew. And this is a really great way to just give yourself a little of extra support right now in this back to school reset time. So today's guest, Hilary DeCesare, is wonderful. She is the owner and CEO of the Relaunch the Relaunch Company. And today we're talking about turning setbacks into transformations. And I really love this topic right now because I feel like 2020 has been the year of setbacks. And we are all in a transition period. And we talk a lot about how transitions really make or break the journey of our life, if you will. I really think that you're going to love it. Let me read you her bio. Hilary DeCesare is an award-winning entrepreneur and the CEO of the Relaunch Co., helping people as a transitional strategy coach, relaunching people to new heights in their life, their career, and in relationships using her step-by-step approach, the Relaunch Effect. And we talk about the Relaunch Effect in this interview, and she just gives some really great practical strategies to restart and relaunch. And, you know, it's so funny because when I named my September sessions Refresh and Reconnect, I wasn't even thinking that it would go so great with this episode, but it is. It's just this idea of like, let's just have a reset and let's look at things with new eyes and see what is not serving us right now and what will serve us going forward. So take a listen. You guys are going to love this interview with Hilary DeCesare. Welcome, Hilary DeCesare, to In Her Voice. I'm so glad that you're here to join us today.
Kelly, it's awesome. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, wonderful. And we had a little bit of technical difficulty at first, and I was like, oh, I hope we don't have to reschedule because I am so interested in what you're doing, which is helping women who are in transition to relaunch their life. And like, what an exciting way to see it. And so why don't you start first with just talking about what exactly you mean by relaunching?
Well, Kelly, first off, I have to say I've enjoyed listening to your podcast, and I see so many things that are aligned between us, and where you have kind of really put it out there a few years ahead of me in terms of the podcast. I really looked at it from the perspective of, first, I was this businesswoman, and then I became mindful. I didn't grow up in a house where people were even thinking about mindfulness, were even thinking about your inner voice. In fact, if you have that inner voice, shut it down, because it's probably going to lead you in the wrong direction, is more along the path that I was raised. So what is fascinating is now that I'm looking at sharing Relaunch with the world, which I've been, I've worked in corporations, big corporations. I've launched companies. I've had the Relaunch company for now a few years. I've incorporated all of this coaching that I've done for over 20 years with executives and business people. And all of a sudden I realized that everybody has relaunches in their life. Everybody. And they come out of left field sometimes. Sometimes we know about them. Sometimes they're, if you go all the way back to when you were young, and you're graduating from high school, you're graduating, you're going off to college, you're starting your first job, you're potentially getting, laid off of your first job or your second, or maybe it's even happening right now, or relationships and breakups and divorces. And all of a sudden you realize, my gosh, our life consists of the transitions that we make. And what's really relevant, I believe, to your listeners is that a launch of yourself is usually not based on your own principles of how you would actually launch yourself. It's based on what your parents told you. It's based on your teachers, your friends. That's where your information, that's where your roadmap to success came from. It's their beliefs, not yours. And then you launch yourself and you go and you do it. And next thing you know, more and more launches happen. More and more relaunches start to step in. And the relaunch is significant because as we get older, and I work with anywhere from, kids that are launching out of college and people that are transitioning right now with their jobs or marriage or trying to get back out there and they haven't had an opportunity to date in a long time. I mean, you name it. Relaunches are all over the place. But what's fascinating and relevant to your audience is that a relaunch is really listening to your inner voice. It becomes all about the lessons that you've learned and the silver linings around them that become so significant. So a relaunch is something that, I thought, oh my gosh, this is something that I want to get out to the world, to every single, woman, man. We're all having these, and it's time to realize that the old way of launching doesn't work anymore.
So let's talk about that, because what I am hearing when you say this is, you were talking even at the beginning about you were a businesswoman first, and then you were mindful second. And that seems sort of like this classic juxtaposition of masculine and feminine energy. And I was actually going to say versus, but I think as I have grown older and really embraced both of those, like I'm recognizing it doesn't have to be either or. And so can you talk about that a little bit? Because I think that there's a lot there.
Oh, it is that's like the jackpot. When you figure out that you don't have to have one or the other, but when they work in unison, it's where the magic happens. And I can go back to my corporate days, and I remember like it was yesterday, I was in a world of men. I was at a company, Oracle. It was, we were selling manufacturing and financials. My clients were men. The people I worked with were men. And I developed a high level of testosterone. I developed this this get out there and, achieve. And I had my to-do list and it was check, 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 check. And how was I going to get up the corporate ladder? And I remember coming home one day and I had just gotten married and my mom was visiting and she said, whoa, I came in hot. I came in from a long day. I was blazing. And she said, Hilary, where's your softer side? You don't have to lose that to be successful. And it just, Kelly, it was like light bulb went off in my head. Actually, it was more like, a firecracker 4th of July. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was trying to fit into a man's world instead of realizing that I didn't have to. I could bring both sides. And once I realized that, that's when my career skyrocketed.
Interesting. Well, and it's funny because for me, I feel like I would like to incorporate more masculine energy, and part of it, and this is me just being really transparent with everyone right now. I love my softness. I love my femininity. And I think that there is a fear that if I allow more of that masculine, drive to come in and work in tandem, that it will take over. So, how can we sit with those fears and trust that we can find the balance point of the masculine and the feminine?
Oh, it's like you're on a teeter-totter.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. You're at the park and you're going up and down and it's, whichever way the wind blows, it's where, whoever you're with can bring out either. And that's giving away your power. That's giving away your own energy. When you start to realize, and as you said, I'd like to have more. So you might have this high level of estrogen. We need to build up the testosterone. Well, guess what? When I mentioned list building is actually a testosterone building in your body event. When you get yourself out there and you start to make all your plans, that actually builds your testosterone. And so there's activities that actually helps you on that side. But then the side, I get a lot of people that come to me that say, I'm in my masculine. How do I get into my feminine? And I call it the O diet, the oxytocin diet. And the O diet includes those activities that allow for oxytocin, which is the bonding drug, which is the love drug, which is, that cuddle feeling. I give you the ability to start to think about, okay, how do you love yourself up? How do you let yourself know you're important? And so it might be as crazy as taking a bath. It might be going on a walk, listening to your favorite podcast. It might be talking to a friend. And right now, calling a friend and just saying, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. That all builds up that oxytocin. And then it's a matter of really looking at, okay, are they in balance? Are they in balance? And the way that you can actually feel it is your stress level. Mm-hmm. If you're in balance, your stress level is, think of that teeter-totter again. It's more at that leveled playing field. It's more of that, it's even, it's in flow. And when you start to feel like, stress comes out, what is stress really? Stress is fear. There's a fear that's coming out in some way around something. And so for many people right now, it's the unknown. It's the unknown of, where is life going to go? Where is my job going to go? Am I going to have a job? Is somebody in my family going to get sick? Am I going to get sick? Fear, 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 which causes stress, which then throws you out of balance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that so much. And, speaking of now, we're in the midst of a pandemic. This is being recorded in August of 2020. I want to go back to this statement that you made. I wrote it down because it was so good. Our life consists of the transitions we make. Our whole life is just from one change to another change. Isn't there a quote that says the only thing that stays the same is that things are always changing or something like that, right? So I feel like when we talk about transition, we're in a collective transition right now. All of us are living in like an in-between place that we've never been before. And we don't know what it's going to look like on the other side of, when this ends. So can you speak into that and maybe offer some of your techniques that you use for maybe a more traditional transition that we can apply right now?
Absolutely. So when you think about what's happening right now, throughout our entire life, it doesn't matter how old you are right now, we've never been in anything like we're going through right now, which means generations, whether you have kids, whether you have parents alive, we're all going through this at the same time. So there are no answers. And this is truly in our lifetime the first time that this has happened. And so when you think about transitions of the past, people always want to give advice. Well, when I, lost my job, this is what I did. And when I got divorced, this is how I handled it. And today we don't have that. So when what I hear most often right now is this idea of being stuck because we're in fear of the unknown. And when you think about being stuck is that you actually are in resistance to something. You're in resistance to whether you're feeling like, oh my gosh, all these things we've already discussed, like, am I going to have enough money to pay my bills? Am I going to be able to continue down this path? Do I really even like my job? Do I really even like what I'm doing? Do I really even like my relationships? There's so many things that are coming into resistance and this idea of change. And what I find fascinating is that if you think about what being stuck is, because you can't stay stuck forever. I mean, it's not physically possible because life goes on around you.
Right.
So even if you want to be like, hey, I'm just going to, go into my bed and throw the covers over my head, eventually you're going to have to come out, whether it's to, make yourself food, whether it's to take a shower, whatever, you're going to have to come out, and that's change. So what happens with being stuck is it forces you to change. It forces you. It says, all right, you got to do something. And so what we have that I would like to share with your listeners is we have something called the Relaunch Recipe for Change. And this is so important, and you can just start with thinking about it right now. If you think about a recipe, you have it, and what do we all do with a recipe? Or most of us do. We like one of the ingredients, so we might add a little bit more. Or we don't like one of the ingredients, so we go a little less. Or, I think this would be really good with a little dash of this or a dash of that.
You cook like my mother-in-law.
So there are people who follow the rules. I'm not necessarily a rule follower.
I love it.
So when you think of this relaunch recipe, you have something. And so imagine on the right hand, the right side of this formula is this resistance. Okay. It's this stuck feeling. It's something going on. But then I want you to think about on the left side, whatever you're dissatisfied with. All right. So what we say is D, that dissatisfaction. What is it? Identify what that dissatisfaction is. What is it about your life right now that you're like, yikes, I can't handle this? And then I want you to really think, if it were going really well, what would it look like? And the way we say it is D multiplied by V, which is this vision, this clarity of where you really would like it to go. And the most important thing when you're talking about clarity, because remember, you can't get to a place that you haven't really thought about. You're going to always, if you get in a car and you don't know where you're going to end up going nowhere. Mm-hmm. And what I want for your listeners is I want them to really think about, okay, I have this dissatisfaction. All right, that's going on in my life. But where I really want it to be is this. And then I want you to ask yourself the why. And so what we do at that point is we add in the why. So it's this idea of dissatisfaction multiplied by your vision, by clarity. And then we add in this concept of, why do you want that vision? What are the reasons? What are the feelings behind it? My gosh, let's just use an example in terms of one that I'm getting a lot these days is that, I haven't, I really want to have an incredible relationship. I really do. And this, being either living with someone, I've realized that, yikes, I'm not really sure what this relationship is going to be after we were allowed to just go and be wherever we're, go back to our life again, travel, get out of the house. And then I have people that are truly alone and feeling very lonely, very isolated. And I do believe, and this is a different conversation, that with the pandemic, there's an epidemic. And the epidemic is loneliness. But if we look at just this recipe, this relaunch recipe for change, you've got your, whatever you're dissatisfied with, you've got this clarity now, you've got your vision in you, and now you've got your why. And then I would ask you, what is the one step that you could take right now? One, teeny, not massive. And then you look at the right versus the left side of this recipe. You've got the right side that says, hey, I'm resistant to change. And then you've got the left side that's all about change. And if the left side is greater than the right, you can start making change. And the only way to get the left side greater than the right is to be able to look at it, understand it, acknowledge it, and then take that one step. And that's how you start to have a relaunch recipe for change.
I think that is so good. And one thing that comes up for me as you talk about this idea of dissatisfaction, and my listeners know I am like an optimist. I am like the glass is half full, the glass is overflowing. Like I really believe that. And that I do think that is somewhat built into our personalities, like kind of how we are. But I think that there's a lot of value in getting curious about your dissatisfaction, especially if you're in that stuck place, because that's what you're feeling. And so I really see it as like even sort of before we get to the vision, before we get to the why, is getting curious about, why do I feel so shitty right now?
Kelly, this is so great, because this is truly, I mean, if we could have a drum roll, this is the secret. Because people are told what you focus on grows, right? Mm-hmm. So, oh no, Hilary, now you're telling me to look at what I'm dissatisfied with. So will that grow? And my comments back on that one is, you have to know where you want to get away from. You have to be able to look at it so that you can move forward. And if you're not willing, or if you are one of those, trust me, I've been there, wall persons, where you put the walls up, wall, I don't want to deal with that wall. There's another wall. I'm going to ask you to take out the pick and literally start to hammer away at that wall. Because what happens is, as we continue to put the wall on the wall on the wall, we start to harden ourselves, and then we can't actually move forward. So it becomes super important to be able to say, okay, I'm acknowledging what I am dissatisfied in my life, because I want change. I now am willing to say, all right, I'm really unhappy with my job right now, or I am really unhappy with my, the way that I've been handling my relationships with, friends, with peers, or I'm really unhappy with, how my company has grown or how my company hasn't grown. But you have to be able to really, really look at, what are you dissatisfied with? Because you can't find answers unless you ask questions. And in order to ask those really great questions of yourself, you got to be, as you said at the very beginning, transparent. I'm going to be really transparent with everyone. You have to be honest with yourself. And the problem is that, most people think that they have to be, positive and happy all the time. And that is not how we're wired. how we're wired is, when we think about our day and we look at, things that happen, and there could be 10 great things. When we have that one bad thing, what are we going to go home and remember? What are we going to go home and want to, tell our friends or our spouse or our partner? You're going to want to tell them the negative. That's just how we're wired in that way. But here's the thing. The difference between positive people and having more positive outcomes is that they have learned that they actually control their thoughts. We are the only species on the entire planet that can change our thoughts. I mean, how cool is that?
Amazing.
Yet so many of us forget that we even have that huge superpower to be able to do it.
Right. And I think that's where getting curious comes in, because like what you're saying with the focus piece, we can feel dissatisfied and we can just like steep ourselves in that, right? In the feeling of not liking where we are. It's like a bath that's just like cold now, but you don't want to get out anymore. Like you're just in it. Or you can say, okay, I'm recognizing that I'm here. Oh, isn't this interesting? Why am I feeling this way? And I think that's where sort of like we can start to crawl out of the bath and dry ourselves off and sort of then take a look at what's in it. Like what's in the bath that's bothering me so much? And that feels different to me than just sort of like steeping in it. There has to be a willingness and really, I guess, a belief that change is possible.
Oh, I love what you just said. And it resonates so much with me. And that it goes back to the silver lining. And if you look back at all of the things that were difficult, that were challenges for you, when you think about them now, there are positives. There are positives with everything. And that's where you can realize that, that great comment of this too will pass. Mm-hmm. Nothing stays the same. And so when you think about, getting out of that bath and you're like, oh, it's going to be so cold. I just want to stay in this. Well, think about it. Eventually the bath becomes tepid. It becomes cold if you stay in too long. We're being pushed along, right? Life pushes us along. But what we have to be able to do is be in control of how we want our life to unfold. And if you think, and this is where I love what you were saying about looking at what you're dissatisfied with, if you just roll with the punches, you just like, woo, 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 you're not going to get as far along as you want. And there's something that we address called, the quality of life. And we have one life. We have one life to live. And we are on this planet such a vast amount of time that to go through life on autopilot, you're plain old missing out. And people think, well, this is just the hand I was dealt. No, this is what you're accepting it to be. But it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that way. And what's so incredible, and as I said, I was all work, and then I realized, the mindfulness, and I realized, that there are ways to change the brain. There are ways to make your life better. You just have to raise your hand and say, I want that. And by the way, thousands of people, have gone through Relaunch, have been able to look at their life differently. And stuck, again, is this kind of like, you don't really want to admit it, but we're all there. We are all there in one way, shape, or form. We're there. Mm-hmm. And so now it's a matter of saying, you know what? I don't want this anymore. I don't want this in my relationship. I don't want this in my business. I don't want this in my life. And now it's up to you to just take the one small step.
Mm. Oh, I love it. I love it. So say we've looked at the dissatisfaction. We've gotten clear on the vision. We've started to take the small steps that lead us to change. And now I want it to hurry up. So one of the things that you talk about is how to develop a mindset for accelerated change. Can you tell us about that?
Ooh, this is a good one. Okay, so for so many of us, we are told in life by the gurus, by the people that are out there that are saying, love yourself. You got to love yourself. You got to love your life. You got to love your job. You got to love, blah, 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 blah. And by the way, I am a huge fan of love. In fact, I literally, I talk about love, at least half of the day. I mean, I'm all into that. But here's the problem. For so many of us, and I was in that place, to hear when I was completely like trying to figure out how to get unstuck, to hear that I needed to go straight to loving myself, it's not possible. I couldn't do it. So instead, what we teach, what we coach is that you got to like yourself before you can love yourself. And you got to love yourself before you can love your life. So it is this process. And so now the question is, all right, how can I start to like myself? And then there's people out there that, hey, I like myself. I love myself. Great. This isn't for you, or it's to further amplify your love. But here's for the people out there that are like, I just don't feel like I'm connected anymore to myself. What we have is this awesome, it's 7 minutes for 7 days, because you got to jumpstart yourself, right? You got to get kind of like, all right, I'm willing and able. I want to do this. And it is all around the word relaunch. And it's 7 days, 7 minutes a day. There's I'm going to give you a link so you guys can go check it out. It's $7, and we actually give every single bit to 2 charities that I've worked with that I absolutely adore. And here's the thing. And why do we do that? Because part of this whole thing is being grateful. It's giving. It's giving to get. And so we started out with that intention. And so what we've done is we've broken out the word relaunch. And people may be like, wait, there's 8 letters there. Yes, because we gave you a bonus day. So each letter represents one step to getting you unstuck. And we start with literally reimagining what you want. It goes back to, hey, what's your vision? How do you get clear? And we take you through it. It's super easy. And then we talk about the E, which is the energy that you're bringing. And that goes to what you were talking about, which is positivity, but it's a different slant on it. And then the L is all about loving yourself up. And how do you like yourself before you love yourself? And then A is acknowledging where you are, right? We are all. There are little young girls and boys and, going through the stage of young men and women. And then you've got, the teenager inside of you. All those people are inside of you making you up. And what I want to be able to do, and there's the sacred sister, it's a circle. And what I want you to do is love up every single one of those different people that have gotten you to where you are. Because if you think that like, oh, I've had a really tough, my God, I've had a tough go. I've had, I've always had like, it's always been really hard. It's tough for me to make money. It's tough for me to stay in relationships. Go back and acknowledge the ones that have gotten you where you are. And actually you're much tougher and stronger than you think. Mm-hmm. And then it's the U for understanding. You are able to do this. It's the N for never doubt your power. We have something called a powerhouse of possibility, which is where we want to take you. This powerhouse attitude that, you do have it all. And the house is this foundational point. We talk about the cracks and we talk about the roof and we talk about all these things. But then the C is creating confidence. And where does confidence come? It comes from competence. It comes from, okay, I've had clients literally reach out to me and say, I've lost my confidence. What happened? I was this totally confident like woman or man. And all of a sudden I'm like, where am I? Where is that person? And so we take you through getting you back. And then the H is back to it's funny because somebody said, oh, is it that, Hilary is going to help the H? I'm like, no, but that's really great. It's actually happiness is actually here, and it's here now. It's right in front of you. It's reaching distance. It's like your hand is almost there, and let's get you there.
Oh, I love this. I love this so much. And so are these like meditations? Are they little processes?
They're quick 7-minute videos, and we have these quick exercises. I'm all about that. Why waste a lot of time?
Yeah.
There's so much great, knowledge that's come from others, and putting it together and saying, hey, here's a faster way to help you reach the quality of life you really want. That's what I want to give people. No more wasting time. It's time to really start to get on the right path. We call it the path of possibility. And we've got these pavers. And these pavers are all these little steps that we take you along. Because sometimes people want to really increase their mindset. They want to understand, what is this? Why is this so important for the top business people? What are they doing that I'm not doing? Relationships. How come, she has that great relationship and I can't? I want people to get to where they're wanting to go faster so they can start enjoying life now, not later.
I love this so much, Hilary. And you know what? One thing that's really coming up to me is that in all of this, the through line to me anyway, is that we have access to what we need 100% of the time, if we are willing to listen to our inner voice. And, that can be a big ask, because maybe people don't know how to do that, or maybe they don't feel comfortable doing that, or maybe they just have to relearn how to do it. Because I believe at one point we were all able to do this, and then we sort of unlearn it, and then we have to relearn it back. And, I'm curious, in your own life, how your inner voice really plays a role. I mean, what kinds of practices are you doing, or what kind of habits do you have to really help you connect with that on a daily basis?
So for me, I mentioned that this was not, listening to my inner voice and calming the mind. That was never something that I grew up with. I mean, it was like, work hard, play hard, keep going, just add more stuff to your plate and do. And so what I have done over the last 10 years, I had this truly awakening. I was going through a tough divorce. I was feeling very isolated, very alone. I had 3 little kids. I was running my own company, traveling all over, raising money for the company. And somebody gave me a copy of The Secret. This was when it first came out. And I read the book, and there was a person in the book, John Assaraf. And I remember thinking, all right, I'm going to test this principle. I want to meet John Assaraf. And I don't just want to meet him. I want to become I want to coach his coaches. I want to why just go a little bit? Let's go all in. And so I started to put together what's now part of the Relaunch program. It's the Relaunch Effect. I put together a way, and no joke, 6 weeks later, I met him, and yes, I ended up coaching his coaches. And it's something that once I started to see the benefits, I started to notice that there's all these universal laws, and it's like, hey, how come I didn't know this? How come I wasn't tapping in? This is like a gold mine, and nobody's ever shared this with me. I started to really become a student of it, and I'm getting a master's certification in neuroscience. I like to think about putting the science together with the universal truths, and then adding all that hard knocks experience, right? The School of Hard Knocks has given me a lot. And then I utilize the experiences of my clients. And that's kind of my unique way that I've incorporated all this into the Relaunch company.
I love that. And what is your inner voice telling you these days?
Oh gosh, my inner voice is saying, you know what, this message this idea, this concept that we now need to, as a relaunch, go internal versus external. Stop looking for outside validation. Start looking for, what's inside of you. It makes me realize that I originally thought, okay, this is going to be like, kind of a Tony Robbins approach for people that are wanting more in this relaunch way. And then I realized it's like, you know what? This is so important right now to get the message out around the like to love, around, people take for granted how much love can actually help you in your journey, that I actually want to help people get to that love place as fast as possible. It's like the yellow brick road. Can we not have it take, 3 hours in that movie? Can we go like chop, chop? And so that's really where my inner voice is saying, Hilary, this concept needs to be out there. It needs to be amplified. And I believe you're helping me do it, Kelly.
Well, Hilary, it is my great pleasure to support you and to help you get your word and your message out into the world, because I do believe that it matters. And I believe that we all have something to say that matters. We all have that little thing inside of us that other people need to hear. And when we recognize that, that's the beginning, right? Like even the recognizing is the first step into feeling the power of that. And I'm so glad you're listening to your inner voice. So why don't you let my listeners know the best way to check out your offerings and to find you on social media and all of that good stuff.
Wonderful. I think the absolute best place, if you're going to pick one spot to go, is our website. It's www.therelaunchco.com. And it's the Relaunch Co, just co.com, because you can find the Silver-Lined Relaunch podcast there. You can find the 7-day, 7-minute How to Get Unstuck challenge there. And you can also check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on Instagram. And it has links and everything. And it gives you a little bit more about what we're doing and our membership that we have and some of the good things that are coming out in the fall.
Wonderful. And we will put a link to all of those good things in the show notes and on whatever podcast app that you're listening to, so you can go ahead and click on over and learn more about Hilary. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being you and for recognizing that your message matters and for sharing it with my listeners.
Thank you so much for having me here today.
Wherever you are and whatever you're doing, I just want you to take one breath right now and use that breath to remind you that you are here and that you've got this. And I say that just as much for you as for me, because I don't know about you, but I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm feeling all of the things. And when I'm feeling that way, I know that this is the time more than ever that I have to be rooted and grounded in the habits and the practices and the rituals that serve me most. And this is also the time when it's the hardest to do that. And so, if this is you too, I just want to encourage you again to reach out, book yourself in for a refresh and reconnect session. Take some time for you and remind yourself how you want to feel. Remind yourself what you want and ask your inner voice what you need to do to get there. Who do you need to be to get there? And she will tell you. You have so got this. You can check out the sessions at kellycovert.com/refresh. And as always, you can find me on Instagram at Kelly J. Covert. I'm doing a lot of cool shares and talking about a lot of really important things there right now. Don't wait. Do this for you. Remember, you are worthy.